I want to thank all of you for your interest in our topic this evening. I guess you're part of a series of studies in apologetics, and tonight you're here to discuss with me and to think about with me the topic of the problem of evil. And I would like to say a few things that are introductory about this problem, and then we'll jump into some of the tricky details, the technical issues related to the problem. Some of the things that I will say to you tonight are supported in greater detail or developed more fully in some of the books that I brought with me. And afterwards, if you'd like to browse the table and take a look at some of these things, you're welcome to do that. Two books that are especially pertinent to our topic in a general way will be the book Evil and the Evidence for God, which I wrote for Temple University Press. That's on the table. And then a collection of articles under the title Contemporary Perspectives on Religious Epistemology. I will refer in particular to one of the articles in this book, an article written by an atheist friend of mine named William Rowe on the problem of evil. And that would be a source for his article as well as other things related to the problem of evil and to the evidence for the existence of God, which is our topic this evening. Now, there are special cases of the problem of evil. Our topic tonight is general. We're going to talk about the problem of evil in a very general way and talk about some strategies for thinking about the problem of evil and responding to people who raise this as an objection to the rationality of belief in God. But some people raise obstacles for belief in God or for belief in Jesus Christ that do not seem to be formulations of the problem of evil, but really are special cases of the problem of evil. For example, many people stumble over the question, is God fair if He does not save all who never have the opportunity to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ? This is a question about divine fairness. Though it's focused on salvation and God's fairness with respect to the unevangelized, it's a very focused, specialized issue there. It still is a species of the problem of evil. And that will not be our topic tonight. But things that we say tonight, things that we discuss together tonight, will have a bearing on that question as well. And if you're especially interested in that question, then there are two other books on the table that might be of interest to you. There's a book there called Four Views on Salvation in a Pluralistic World. It's on the far end of the table there, published by Zondervan. And it includes contributions by people like John Hick and Clark Pinnock, Alistair McGrath, and myself. And it discusses this very question, what about the unevangelized, as well as related issues and the justice of God. Then a chapter that I've contributed to the book Jesus Under Fire is titled, Is Jesus the Only Way? And here again is a chapter-long treatment of the specialized problem of evil concerning salvation or soteriology for those who've never heard, or indeed for some who've heard but still, for some reason or other, do not believe. So that is a little indication of some of the resources that I brought with me that are available to you at a discount because you're part of this course tonight. As we get underway, I'd like for us to ask the question, what is the problem of evil? Now, in a moment, I'm going to make a distinction between two general formulations of the argument from evil. But before we make that distinction, I want to give a characterization in very general terms of the problem. Right? This will help us then when we make this distinction in a few moments between what is sometimes called the logical argument from evil and what is sometimes called the evidential argument from evil. But first, what more generally is the problem of evil? The problem of evil is part of a family of problems, a nest of obstacles that have been stumbling blocks for people who would believe that God exists or that Christianity is true. It's not the only problem. Clearly, that's indicated by the fact that you've had a series of lecturers come in and lecture on a variety of topics, other problems in defense of the faith. This is only one of many. Now, this particular problem is one of the more notorious problems. And historically, it has been regarded as probably the number one obstacle to belief in God. Now, a little bit more by way of general characterization here before we look at special formulations of the problem. When we speak of the problem of evil, we're talking about a kind of obstacle to the rationality of belief in God. It's supposed to be an obstacle to belief in God understood a certain way. God believed to be morally perfect and all-powerful. And you might say, all-knowing. If God is morally perfect, omnipotent or all-powerful, having all the power that one logically could have, and God is all-knowing, omniscient, then why is there evil in the world? On the face of it, it looks like there wouldn't be evil in the world if God is like that, if God has these three properties. Because if God is good, you would expect that He would want to prevent evil. That would be part of His goodness. His desire would be to prevent evil. If He's all-powerful, then He could act on His will and His goodness and His desire and prevent evil, because He has the power to. And if He's all-knowing, then He can anticipate in advance whether evil will happen or not based on other things that He does with His power in accordance with His goodness. Right? Now, this is the intuition that drives almost all formulations of the problem of evil. But we need to say a little bit more that's still general here. Because problems, in philosophical parlance, are called defeaters. And there are two types of defeaters. Maybe one of the other lecturers in this series has already introduced to you this distinction between two different types of defeaters that I want to talk about for just a moment. You could think then of obstacles to theistic belief or belief in God as defeaters of the justification one could have for believing that God exists. They undermine in some way the justification that you have for believing some proposition. And in this case, the key proposition is going to be something to do with the existence of God. What are the two types of defeaters that philosophers talk about? One type of defeater is called a rebutting defeater by epistemologists like John Pollock. A rebutting defeater directly attacks a claim that one would make or the conclusion of someone's argument. In this case, let us say that the claim is that God is morally perfect, omnipotent, and omniscient. Right? A rebutting defeater would offer evidence that that claim is false. A rebutting defeater then would take the form of an argument with the conclusion that that's not true about God. God is not morally perfect, all-powerful, and omniscient. Now, God may be two of the three things, but not all three. Or God may be one of the three things, but not all three. Or it may be that God has none of these properties. All of these would be different formulations of the claim that God is not morally perfect, omniscient, and omnipotent. And a rebutting defeater would take the form of presenting evidence or an argument that this is the case. In other words, it directly attacks your belief in mind that this is what God is like.